Hello! In this video, I'm going to talk about primary keys. Wonder what your first clue was that I was going to talk about primary keys, beside the fact that I said so. Anyway, so I will put this video on, I'll put it, of course, on D2L, but also this presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, I'll put on Facebook as well. So, just so you know. Okay, so what I'm going to go over in this video is about primary keys and give you a little intro. You've read about it, so some of that probably will be review. I'll give you some characteristics of primary keys just to help remind you because people they think they know it, but then when they get right down to it, they don't realize it in application. And then we'll go over um, more in depth applying the concepts of primary keys. Okay, so as you've probably read about, primary keys have unique information. And some examples of primary keys are Social Security number, your S number, an account number, and for governmental uh, kinds of information, it might be your fingerprint that's an identifier. Um, so I primary keys, they identify unique information, and you're like, what does that mean? I know when I heard it, I was totally confused. But if you think about, let's think about a set of information for contacting students. And so in a table, you might put in, say, their first name, their last name. You might put in their street address, their city, their state, their email address, their phone number, all that stuff. Okay. And so what would you use for a primary key? Well, if you're doing it for Front Range Community College, then you would use an S number as an identifier because that identifier is associated with the record for contact information for a particular student, right? That S number identifies those particular pieces of information. So if you're thinking about other situations, you might use a social security number, or you might use an account number at a bank. That account number identifies at that bank, your particular information. You wouldn't want somebody to use a different account number and be able to reference your information. So that account number is unique to your records for that particular set of information or set of financial records. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Just so you know, in a table, a primary key cannot be repeated. I want to make sure you understand that too. It cannot be repeated. Okay, that's what makes it, that's what we're talking about unique information. It cannot be repeated. Okay, so moving on. Characteristics of primary keys. They can be made of one field. So one field can identify a primary key. For example, we could have an S number be the identifying field for a particular table. Remember, when we're talking about primary keys, we're talking about it in relation to a table. So you can also have more than one field called a composite key make up a primary key. So what can happen is you can take the value of one field, combined with the value of another, and the combination of those two would not be repeated in the table. And the combination of those two would identify that particular set of information or that record. Okay. Next, all primary key fields must have a value in them. They can't, in access at least, they cannot be left blank. Those are also known as null values. They also can't have like just one space in them. Although you might be able sometimes to have that. You might find that Access makes a mistake because Access does make mistakes. All software does. And you might once in a while be able to just press the space bar and be able to leave it as blank. But as a general rule, just go with the fact that you can't leave a blank space in there, nor can you just leave it empty. Just so you know, leaving it empty is considered to be a null value. And leaving it empty is different than putting in a space in there. Okay? Anyway, so once again, to restate, primary keys cannot be no matter if it's the field or a combination of fields, the value of the primary key cannot be repeated in the table. You can also have what's known as a natural key. A natural key is, maybe I should, anyway, a natural key is something that kind of is known in our society and is sort of quote unquote natural. So computers aren't natural, but I guess the computing world likes to think that it is by, and that's reflected in this term of natural key. Natural key means something like your social security number, an account number, things that I've mentioned before that our society in general, when you say those words, they recognize them. Okay. Primary keys can also be generated. So you want to try to use natural keys if you can, but sometimes in certain situations with certain databases, it's not realistic. So then you would use perhaps an auto number, or you would generate it in some way into your database. Okay. And the last thing that I really want to emphasize about primary keys is don't use names for primary keys, like names of items, names of people. They tend to not be good primary keys. And so let's think about the example of Kathy Smith. Do you want to use that as a primary key? Kathy Smith isn't very unique, is it, in our world? Kathy Smith is a very, very common name. So just as a general rule, names are definitely not good uses for primary keys, okay? Because you can't get identifying information for specific records. Okay, so now I want to talk about an application of a primary key, one that I would think that you as students would really understand, and that's about tracking classes and other student data. So here in this example, I'm saying that we want to track one student's classes in a semester. So let's say you want to put that in a table. I realize that's a small set of data and you probably wouldn't put it in a table in the real situation. But for explaining things, let's just go with it. So let's say that you want to track a student's classes in a table. Okay, so you could use this class ID as your primary key, and you would just type in the classes um, for this student in the table. Okay. All right, so what would be the oh, I gave it away. What would be the primary key to put into this table? Well, actually, class ID. Okay, anyway. But I think you probably understand what I'm talking about. And of course, if you don't, email me. All right, so let's move on. Let's see if I can not give away the answers to the questions so easily this next time. You want to track multiple students. What would you do? So let's say that you want to put in information for more than one student. Well, of course, you can add the student ID as a field, right? And so here you see the student ID, and then here is their identifier. So we add that to the table. What happens though is student 040, and I apologize that I'm referring to students without names and just numbers, but what happens if student 040 wants to take CIS 115 with student 039? What happens then? Okay, the current primary key is just class ID, right? And that's it. Okay, Access would give you an error, wouldn't it? Because you would be putting in two records with CIS 115. Okay, so you can fix getting an error for entering 040's class ID, but how would you do that? Okay, and the answer to that would be to change the primary key so that it's student ID and class ID, both. Okay. And so then you can, the combination of those two values together, 039 and CIS 115, is not the same as 040 CIS 115. And so Access will allow you to enter them in. And just to note, because you're putting two fields as the primary key, it now becomes a composite key. Okay. All right. So the data below can only track one semester. Well, why would you say that? Okay. Why would you say that you can't put in data for more than one semester? Well, let's take the example of what if 039 fails CIS 118 and has to take it over. So your identifying fields are class ID and student ID, right? Okay. And so 039 and CIS 118 is already entered. If you try to enter it again, Access will give you an error. Okay. So let's see. Access won't let you enter this record. Yeah. All right. So I said that. All right. So going to the next slide, how would we enable the record so that student ID 039 can be entered for spring 2017? And so what would you do? Well, you can change the composite key to include semester, because when you do that, 039 and then CIS 115, and then you put in spring 2017, well, that's different than 039 fall 2016 CIS 115. The combination of the three is different, so Access will allow you to enter that information. Okay, so hopefully you understand that concept. It's a little bit, what do I want to say, difficult to get. So you might want to listen to the, especially this last part, this application part, again, if you didn't get it the first time, because it is a little bit like, I feel like my brain is bent now. So anyway, in summary, primary keys are unique identifiers. So the values that go into the a primary key, the combination of them cannot be repeated in any other record in a particular table. Okay. The characteristics of primary keys include that they can be made of one or more fields, and if they are more than one field, they're called a composite key. And they must have a value. They can't be left blank. They can be a natural key or they can be generated. Natural keys are considered like social security number and S number and account number. And names are usually not the best fields for a primary key. So hopefully you understood the application that I gave you of how to build a primary key, and you'll get a chance to practice it in your supplemental activity. And there's my bird clock. And so anyway, again, if you have any questions, certainly let me know. And if we need to, we'll get an online group help available to you. Okay, anyway, sorry it's so long. This video is so long. Bye.